recent cyber attack against the Office of Personnel Management is the latest in a series of aggressive attacks against our nation in both the public and private sectors. I want to put up a slide that lists some of the most significant breaches over the past few years. Anthem, 80 million people. J.P. Morgan, 76 million people. Target, 70 million people. OPM, at least 4 million so far. Then there was the Postal Service, Sony Pictures, and USIS. And this is not a comprehensive list by any means. Ladies and gentlemen, when you see this list, the picture is clear. The United States of America is under attack. Sophisticated cyber spies, many from foreign countries, are targeting the sensitive personal information of millions of Americans. They are attacking our government, our economy, our financial sector, our healthcare system, and virtually every single aspect of our lives. For more than 2 years, I've been pressing for our committee to investigate these cyber attacks. So I thank the Chairman for holding today's hearing, and I hope we will hold similar hearings on many of these other attacks as well. With respect to the attack against OPM, my primary concern is who was targeted, government workers, and what foreign governments could do with this information. I have several questions for OPM. How many Federal employees were indeed affected? What kind of information was compromised? And what steps are being taken to help these employees now? I also want to know how these attackers got inside of OPM's networks. Last year, cyber attackers penetrated the networks of USIS and Keypoint, two contractors that perform background checks for security clearances on behalf of OPM. One of the most critical questions we have today is, did these cyber attackers gain access to OPM's data systems using information they stole from USIS or Keypoint last year? Did they get the keys to OPM's network from one of its contractors? Mr. Chairman, I ask you to invite both Keypoint and USIS representatives here to testify today. You agreed to invite USIS, but last night, they refused, just as they have refused repeated requests for information over the past year. They did not offer someone else they thought would be appropriate. They simply refused. I do not say this lightly, Mr. Chairman, but I believe USIS and its parent company may now be obstructing this committee's work. We have suggested previously that the committee hold a transcribed interview. Given the history of noncompliance at USIS, I believe this may be one of the only ways to obtain the information we are seeking. Mr. Chairman, over the past 2 years, I've also been pressing to investigate ways to better protect personal information that belongs to the American people, their financial records, their medical records, their credit card information, their Social Security numbers, and a host of other information they want to keep secure. I sought advice from some of the nation's top information security experts in private business and government. These experts warn that we cannot rely primarily on keeping the attackers out. We need to operate with the assumption that the attackers are already inside. They're already there. Last week, one of the world's foremost cybersecurity firms, Kaspersky Labs, was penetrated in a cyber attack. And according to FireEye, one of the companies my staff spoke with, the average amount of time a hacker remains undetected is more than 200 days. That's a lot of time. Obviously, we need strong firewalls and other defenses to keep attackers out. But experts recommend much more aggressive measures to wall off or segregate data systems to minimize the impact of inevitable data breaches in the future. Practices like data masking, redaction, and encryption must become the norm rather than the exception. Finally, we need to remember who the bad guys are here. They're not U.S. companies or federal workers who are trying to keep our information safe. The bad guys are the foreign nations and other entities behind these devastating attacks. According to law enforcement officials, North Korea, China, Russia, and Iran are the most advanced, persistent threats to this nation's cyber security. So as we move forward today, I want to caution everyone that as much as we want to learn about this attack, we have to do so in a responsible way. A lot of the information about the attack is classified. And the last thing we want to do is give our enemies information or compromise active law enforcement investigations. We're having a classified briefing for members at 1 p.m. today, so I encourage everyone to attend. And as I close, Mr. Chairman, I want to thank you again for the bipartisan approach that you've taken on this issue. And I hope we can continue to investigate these and other breaches to identify common threats against our country and the best ways to counter them. And with that, I yield back.